Hey guys, welcome to the At Cause podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm here with my man Kevin. Kevin, say hi.
Hey.
My name is Nelson, and we got some fun stuff in store for today. We're going to talk about The Advantage, the book by Patrick Lencioni. We had our little quarterly executive management team offsite. So we do that quarterly. We do 1 year where we do a retreat. It's like 3 days away, but every quarter we get together, talk about objectives and how we're looking compared to the objectives, accountability, right? And every once in a while we read a book. So that's really when we run out of a lot of problems, is then we make our own problems, is really what's happening. But we have this great guy, Josh Finley.
Shout out.
Hey Josh, you're killing it.
Shout out.
We've used him now for 3 of our meetings, and he's walking us through this book, The Advantage, and workshopping it with us. So that's been really fun. So one way, I'm just going to give you a little, I'm going to dive right in. Sorry, guys. We're going to dive into something that has been helpful for us. No pun intended. It's called the 4 helpfuls. And what this does is really get the management team aligned for major discussions. So every week we have a management team meeting. And we have this long issue board of stuff that probably shouldn't be on there that we need to clean off. Right. And, you know, it gets a little convoluted. So during this quarterly meeting, we start with this little exercise called the 4 helpfuls. And picture it with me, if you will. It's
closing my eyes.
Close your eyes. Imagine you being there. So it goes left to right. And the first column, you have what's going right. And you only do 1 column at a time. Everybody gets the, verbal diarrhea over these lists. And you start by what's going right. Hey, what's going right? Hey, we have the right people on the management team. Maybe we have we have a good space. We have a good space to work out of. Everybody likes the space that we work out of. So we just talk about what's going right. They can be basic. They can be high level, low level. Then we talk about what's wrong. And that's usually the longest list.
Coincidentally.
What's wrong. But there's 2 caveats to that. And the other 2 columns are what's missing and what's confusing. And I think that there's going to be themes, right? There's going to be themes in an organization between wrong, missing, and confusing. Right? And I think with anyone that you walk through this, they're going to have more things in one of those 3 columns.
Right.
And I think it's going to be, indicative of, or like it's going to represent who's leading the ship, right? So all of our things were in confusing.
It was a big list.
Yeah. So the idea is that you go column by column, what's right, fill it out. Jump to what's wrong. Everybody says what's wrong. Everybody says what's missing. Everybody says what's confusing. And then the exercise is everybody gets 1 check mark, and you put it next to the 1 issue that you want to discuss.
Right.
Then once everybody has done that, you then do it 1 more time. So you come away with 2 things, really, that you must solve in that offsite. And so if it's right, we want to amplify it. If it's wrong, we want to fix it. If it's missing, we want to add it. And if it's confusing, we want to clarify it. So just a little tip. This has helped us out tremendously, so that's why I'm sharing it with you. If it helped us, I'm sure it can help somebody else, so you're welcome.
Nice tip.
Yeah.
I had nothing to add. Every time I thought I'd have something to add, you covered it. So
sorry about that.
No, solid.
I just took it. I'm going to let you talk, though. So the other part of the meeting, we talked about the book, The Advantage, Patrick Lencioni. I'm probably saying his name wrong. It was a great book, and talking about organizational health. And so, Kevin, You loved this book.
I did. I found myself highlighting things and putting Post-it notes in sections to refer to them later. That's the sign of a good book for me.
Yeah, we sat down at the conference table. He threw his book on the table, and there's 80 Post-it notes sticking out the end of it. I was like, oh crap.
It just means that I either want you to think I read the book or I actually read the book. That's how that goes.
Right. I listened to the book,
from
so
college.
my book, I could resell it on Amazon because the spine wasn't even cracked. But
Perfect.
Go ahead. So tell me what was probably your biggest takeaway or two biggest takeaways from the book?
Sure. The thing that I found the most compelling about the book, especially from what the lion's share of my work as a marketer is how the author talks about mission statements are essentially irrelevant. They're old. They're not as much of a compass as you might think that they are. And he talks about, he actually uses in the book, he uses a mission statement. Spoiler alert for anybody who's going to read the book. It is the Dunder Mifflin mission statement, and
from The Office.
From The Office.
Yeah.
And it got me because when I was reading it, I actually fell hook, line, and sinker into this. Like, this is
that's a good mission statement.
Mission statement, and it's funny because in what he's trying to articulate is that we essentially paint mission statements as those of us who are in the business of crafting them. And working with organizations, we tend to allow organizations to kind of paint their mission statements all with the same brush. Organization A and B and C are all using the same kind of jargony language to talk about, like, we're innovators, we're team, we're customer focused, and that, like, a lot of it can become jargony and essentially be stuff that you really don't value or uphold as an organization in any significant way, in any different way than organization B down the street.
Yep.
Where, that your mission statement could just be as easily stapled to your T-shirts as it could be to another organization's T-shirt. And if that's true, then how are they really guiding principles? How are they really a compass for your organization if, in fact, or all of these organizations hold the same the same kind of mission statement? And also, he talked about essentially how the jargony words can have little to no meaning when we just pick them out because they sound good and they sound inspirational. And it's almost like we assume that these are the things we should say about our organization, and so we're going to say them about the organization. But if you asked someone from the organization or several someones from different parts of the organization, what does it mean to be innovative, or what does it mean to be customer obsessed, or whatever that is, that the answer would either be far ranging or there would be no answer at all, because it's not necessarily something that you actually believe in or uphold as an organization. And I found that interesting because for so long, so much of what I have done in how we position brands, how we build marketing for brands, is rooted in starting with, what does your mission say about you? And the book flips that concept on its side and actually points to, no, look closer at what your values say about you, and how you actually and get clear about what values are essential to you and real versus what value, and we can talk about what other ways they talk about values. But it was just a really insightful approach. And because we're positioning as Full Sail Media, we're spending so much time positioning our clients according to their values that it underscored for me that we've made a smart change and pivot in how we do things. I'm actually, I'm really impressed with specifically the language they use around the different kinds of values. They talk about values as aspirational values. They talk about values as permission to play values. They talk about values as accidental values. And
like permission to play values. Like, you have to be trustworthy.
Right.
Like, that's not a core value. That's like, you have to have that just to come to work here.
To do business.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. To do business. I mean,
to live. I mean, that should be everybody's core value.
No one's going to put on there that we're not trustworthy.
So, yeah. That's like, that should be a given.
Yeah.
Right. right? So that shouldn't be a core value. That should
Right.
just be, you know, a value that you uphold as a human.
Yeah,
Maybe.
and I think you hit the nail on the head. I'll give a little, you know, inside baseball to you. You came to our executive management team with the thought that there are some of even our core values that we believe in or have believed in that are more permission to play values than necessarily the values that we hold in stock and trade as an organization. And that inspired a conversation around, you know, in the very near future, looking at if we have to recraft some of our values,
Right.
Which I think takes a certain amount of bravery to have values that you've been espousing for a long time,
Right.
and then be proposed or confronted with this idea that, like, hey, you may actually be a little bit left of center on your thinking,
Right.
and to reimagine it based on what are you actually upholding as an organization.
Right.
And we stepped into that conversation briefly, but I thought it was a really, I'm excited to see what comes of it.
Right. And I wanna I wanna get into that a little bit because I feel like in some ways the only wrong answer to your values is lying, right?
Right.
I mean, so there's no technically wrong answer. It's just when you are not honest about it,
Right.
right? So it's when you get outside of who you actually are is when it's wrong. And so, and I'm not going to get emotional about this. I'm going to maybe a little angry, but you know what I'm seeing happening on the social webs. I'm really a LinkedIn guy, so are these values of other business owners or something along those lines that they feel like that's the only value that their values are the only values that should be.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's even ideas around how many days people should be in the office and be remote.
Right.
Should they all be remote? Should they only work a 4-day work week?
Right.
There's tons of people that have come and interviewed with us that say, no, I value collaboration. I want to be in an office. I want this. We just happen to be on that side of the fence for clarity. We do have flexibility there.
Right.
And I think that's just, we're meeting the need.
Right.
However, we're an organization that just has we value different things.
Right.
It's not wrong. It's just who we are. Right. And so I'm not going to shame anybody for having a completely remote workforce. That's awesome.
Right.
That's great. There's also just like there's customers out there that want to work with me versus you.
Right.
Right? Like we're different people, and there's some that you resonate with, there's some that I resonate with.
Right.
So all I'm saying is be true, be authentic, be who you are, and let it come out, and you will attract the right people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. And, beyond values, the book actually has us take a look at 6 fundamental questions about your organization, because essentially, we haven't really said so, but the function of the book is to take a look at your organizational health.
Yeah.
And how organizational health, I think it even says on the cover, organizational health trumps everything else in business.
Yes.
And how important your ecosystem is.
Yeah.
And it proposes 6 questions about or topic areas for you to look at. And it gives great suggestions around those topic areas. The first one, it talks about why do we exist as an organization. Like it's similar to, I would call it a cousin to the origin story, which we won't go into now. But
but Lou wants us to go there. We got to get on that, Lou.
It is on our topic list. We promise.
Shout out to Lou. She creates a lot of the topics that she wants us to talk about, and that's on the list. And we'll get to it.
We'll get there. But why do we exist as an organization? Had me really tripping for a minute. I spent some time thinking about, okay, as a marketing organization, what we say is, we are growth partners. We're strategic growth partners for our customers. And I really I thought, if that's true, are we saying that plainly enough in our value statement to just say help our customers grow? And I think I brought that up in our meeting, is like, if that is why we exist, and it is one of our values, why not just be plain about it and speak to that specific point? in plain language.
Totally.
Because I think that sometimes we get really flowery and or creative in what our value is, and that can be a disadvantage to people who want to hear about our values. Is like we have to explain and get really clear.
It's like trying to explain a joke, right?
Yeah, like it's not funny if you have to explain the punchline. Though I think that some people, I mean, I like some of the ones that you brought to us. I know another organization had this as one of their values, and you thought it was really cool, is the batteries included. And like you have to really think about what that means to, but I mean, I think you can get it just hearing it actually.
The Energizer Bunny.
Right.
You just keep going and going,
absolutely.
right? Batteries included.
Yeah, so the first question that they asked us was, why do we exist? And I thought, and that drove me to that point. And I thought that was really cool to take a look at specifically why we exist. The second one is, how do we behave?
Yeah.
And that's where we're talking about core values. How do we behave?
Right.
Or not behave, as the case may be. But I just thought that was, as an organization, our values being what they are, like how do we put that out in the community or in our customer? How do we show up?
Yeah.
And how do we walk the walk that we're talking about? And getting clear on what's aspirational versus permission to play versus accidental, and what are essential to us, so that we can walk the walk in our, in our business life, in our personal lives too. But like, how we can keep our core values essential to our core, essentially, essential to our core, essentially. I just thought I thought that was really insightful to ask, how are we essentially walking the walk?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then the third question is, why do we do what we do? Or no, I'm sorry, what do we do?
What? Yeah.
And that's interesting for a marketing agency, because there's a bunch of tactics that we do. Like we do paid ads, we do content creation, we do content marketing, we do all of these things that we do. But to me, it seemed like there's a higher part of that, like we're storytellers.
Right.
All of these tactics, these drawers in the bureau, if you want to say it that way, are all vehicles to get there.
Right.
But the thing that we do is we tell stories. And the reason that we tell stories is so that people will become interested in your business and you will grow.
Right.
And so it had me get really clear about like that question about what do we do? Not just how do we do it, but what is the calling?
Yeah.
It was really powerful to me.
That's great.
I don't know how you felt about it. I'll let you chime in.
No, I think that it was, I think that was a powerful exercise for you to go through, mainly because you've been here for 3 years?
Just 2, but it feels like 3.
Feels like 8. So as we've developed and grown this side of the business tremendously over those few years, is for different. I mean, I think that there's, me, Susan, and Ian out of the EMT, we created the core, like we did the first exercise together, right? So from my perspective, to see how it's evolved, and then see like Jeff, when Jeff came on board and interacted with me, Susan, and Ian, and him having that aha moment, and then for you to see you come along and see what part that you play in it, and then having that experience of uncovering it for yourself. I think that's gold. That's what this is for. And I recommend anybody that's, when we talk about the 4 helpfuls and what's confusing, right?
Right.
Like being inside the jar, the glass jar, we can't read our labels, right?
Right.
I've said it 1,000 times, and we have to get outside of it. And it's times like this that we can get outside of the jar, read the label. Who are we? What do we actually do? Why am I here?
Right.
It's not a punishment from God, I promise. Although sometimes I feel that way. So the other 2 questions that he goes into, or 3 questions, we only got through 3, right?
Yep.
How will we succeed? That's fun. We didn't really unpack that one yet. There was a lot to do in just those first three. What's most important right now, and who must do it? So I feel like those three are more boots on the ground. Like, okay, so we know why we exist. We know what we do and how we behave. We're clear about that. But like, how are we going to get it done? Because at the end of the day, shit needs to get done, right? I mean, one of the you've heard of Alex Hormozy, right? Famous podcaster. He's built an incredible business. He got famous from Gym Launch, but one of the things he talks about is like he took off a year and just said no to everything. Like no, I'm not going out. I'm not going to drink. I'm going to say no to every meetings. He was paying for masterminds and wasn't going to them. You know, and because at the end of the day, the work needs to get done.
Right.
And so it's great to have these feels and, oh, now I know why I exist and I know what we do. But then it's got to get done.
Yeah.
And as leaders in this organization, we have to lead by example, right?
Yeah.
We can't I would love to just delegate and walk away. Yeah, that's not going to happen. So we have to do the things. So I love that there's the first three are really like, you know, head in the clouds, existential feels, and yeah. And then the last three are like, okay, how is this going to happen? Right? How are we going to do it?
Yeah. I mean, the first thing in that section where he talks about how will we succeed, he actually walks you through a brain dump of all of the attributes of your organization and then asks you to group them together in strategic anchors. Yeah. And I thought that was really fascinating. You put out 50 different ideas about what your business is made up of. You know, everything from the customer experience to your marketing, just all the attributes.
Right.
And then to draw clear lines into groupings, like what is related to each other, and then thematically, how is that a strategic anchor to you know, to move you forward? And I had never considered an exercise like that, and it's fun to see him draw it out and actually draw out specific strategic anchors that he pulled out of it. And I thought that was a fascinating way to put boots on the ground, to your point, and actually, you know, take a look at all of those and how they relate to each other.
Right.
Yeah.
So I feel like this has come at a really interesting time. So Kevin's been really busy. Why we haven't done any podcasts in a while. Kevin's been really busy with doing brand positionings for customers.
Yeah.
And on top of that, we just launched our archetype trainings. And we had an archetype training about 2 weeks ago. Went phenomenally well. There was tons of response from it. And so like this is like that's like a understanding who you are. I mean, it's why we exist, right? And understanding that next step of, okay, well, who are we? It's almost like not the next step. That's almost like the precursor step for this, right? It's like, who are we? And I love that exercise. And you've done a phenomenal job of putting that together. So give me like a couple cliff notes from the archetype training, and why it was important and impactful to the clients that came in.
I mean, the archetype training talks about what the personality is of your business. And like if your business is I mean, there's 12 archetypes, first of all, that have been used to create characters for books, stories, movies, and somewhere along the line has said, hey, doesn't this translate to marketing? And what we do is we take a look at all of the values, again, of your organization and what you believe and how you want to talk and relate to your customer. And then we choose one of those 12 archetypes as the personality for your organization. And it might be something like sage or jester or magician or caregiver, but it really talks about how to use imagery, color psychology, the types of tone you're going to use in your marketing materials, whether you're going to talk in a friendly and upbeat way, or you may use more, specific stats and figures to be more, present yourself as more knowledgeable or an expertise in your field. And it really is, archetypes are really a fun way to play with how do we show up in our space and attract and like-minded customers.
Right.
And it's one of the, we certainly had a lot of fun doing it. I was doing one yesterday for a client in the healthcare space. And it was really fun to take a look at like, okay, you're a healthcare, so doesn't that automatically mean that you're a caregiver archetype?
Yeah.
But we got to talk about like other ways that other things that they exemplify as an organization and how their archetype might be informed by that. So if you haven't done an archetype, you should absolutely, as a business, jump in.
And a wise man once said, the most unique thing you know is you. So figure out who you are, tell the world. The people that are aligned with you are going to connect, and you're going to do business together, and life will be better than doing business with people that aren't like you and that you don't get along with. So that's my 2 cents.
Awesome.
Well, thanks for listening, guys. You can check us out on any social media, fullsail.media. That's the YouTube, the Instagram, the Facebook. Make sure you follow us, like us, do all those things. And hopefully you found this to be helpful and or interesting.
Check out the book.
Yeah, check out the book.
The Advantage.
The Advantage.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks, Kev. Appreciate it.
It was fun.
Have a great one.